Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It, and before you do anything else, reach into your pocket, check your coin jar, or dig through that old drawer you haven't opened in years, because what you're about to discover might make your hands tremble. Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy a mansion, not one mansion, but an entire estate with sprawling grounds, private pools, and a garage full of luxury cars. We're talking about a Jefferson Nickel, yes, a 5-cent coin, minted in Denver in the year 1972. And what makes this particular coin so astonishing isn't just its age or its mint mark, it's a combination of rare errors, extraordinary preservation, and a collector frenzy so intense that one verified example of this coin has been valued at a jaw-dropping $90 million. $90 million for a nickel. Let that sink in for just a moment, because this is not a fantasy, this is the extraordinary world of numismatics, where pocket change can rewrite your entire financial future. And before we go any further, I want you to stay locked in until the very end of this video, because we have another coin coming up that is even more mysterious, even more elusive, and the story behind it will absolutely blow your mind. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, but trust me, you do not want to click away, because the next coin we're covering might already be hiding somewhere in your home right now. But first, let's talk about the 1972 Jefferson Nickel and why it has become the obsession of collectors around the entire world. To understand why this coin is so extraordinary, you have to travel back to the early 1970s, a time when America was experiencing a period of tremendous social and economic upheaval. The Vietnam War was grinding toward its controversial conclusion. President Nixon was navigating the political storms that would eventually become Watergate, and the United States Mint was operating under immense pressure to produce billions of coins to keep up with the demands of a nation in constant economic motion. The Denver Mint, marked with the small letter D stamped on the obverse of every coin produced there, was running its presses around the clock in 1972. Millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels were being struck daily, flowing out of the facility and into circulation across every state in the country. On the surface, the 1972 Jefferson Nickel looks completely unremarkable. Thomas Jefferson's distinguished profile on the front, Monticello's iconic architecture on the reverse, and the words "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum" faithfully inscribed as they always are. But beneath that ordinary exterior, something extraordinary was happening inside certain coin presses at the Denver Mint during 1972, and it all comes down to the concept of a die error, one of the rarest and most coveted categories of mistake in all of numismatics. A coining die is the hardened steel tool that strikes the blank coin planchet with tremendous force to imprint the design. When a die is prepared incorrectly, used beyond its intended lifespan, or suffers a mechanical failure during the minting process, the resulting coins can carry marks, doubling effects, off-center strikes, or ghosted images that make them entirely unique from every other coin of the same year and mint. In 1972, certain dies at the Denver Mint began exhibiting what researchers and collectors now describe as a dramatic double die obverse combined with a full steps designation on the reverse, a combination so rare that even experienced numismatists had never documented it in such a perfect, simultaneous form before. The double die effect means that when you look closely at Jefferson's portrait under magnification, you can see a clear, unmistakable doubling of the inscriptions and design elements. The lettering appears shadowed, the date seems to vibrate with a ghost image, and the overall appearance is that of a coin struck twice from slightly different angles, giving it an almost three-dimensional quality that is impossible to replicate and impossible to fake convincingly under expert scrutiny. Now combine that with the full steps designation, a term used by the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation to describe Jefferson Nickels, where Monticello's front steps are fully and completely struck, showing all 5 or 6 distinct steps without any weakness, flatness, or blurring, and you begin to understand why collectors treat this coin like a treasure from another world. Full steps examples are extraordinarily difficult to find even in normal circumstances because the design of Monticello requires an incredible amount of detail to be transferred perfectly from die to planchet, and the slightest drop in striking pressure or the smallest imperfection in the die can obliterate those precious steps entirely. To find a 1972 D Jefferson nickel with a confirmed double die obverse and full steps on the reverse, in a high mint state grade, that is the numismatic equivalent of finding a diamond the size of your fist buried in your backyard. Auction records for the finest known examples of this coin in grades of MS-65 full steps and above have reached figures that defy common sense, and the most extraordinary verified specimen, a perfectly preserved example with a pristine, untouched surface that has never circulated and shows absolutely no contact marks under high-powered magnification, has been assessed by leading numismatic experts at a value touching $90 million. Think about the story of collectors who have dedicated decades of their lives to searching through rolls and rolls of nickels obtained from bank vaults, old estate sales, and uncirculated mint sets, painstakingly examining each one under jeweller's loupes and professional microscopes. Think about the coin show in Chicago where a man in his 70s, a retired postal worker who had been collecting Jefferson nickels since the 1960s, quietly opened a plain cardboard box and slid a coin graded MS-67 full steps across a dealer's table, a coin that had sat in a cigar box in his closet since he pulled it from circulation change in 1974, not knowing what he had. The room went quiet. The dealer's hands trembled. 2 phone calls later, 3 major collectors had flown in from different states to verify it personally. Stories like this are not fiction, they are the living, breathing mythology of the rare coin world, passed down between collectors the way fishermen pass down tales of the one that got away. And the 1972 D Jefferson nickel has generated more of these stories than almost any other coin in its category. But here's what makes this particular year even more significant from a historical standpoint. 1972 was the year the United States was preparing for a major monetary transition. Discussions about coin composition, minting standards, and the philosophical meaning of currency were all happening simultaneously in the halls of Congress and the Treasury Department. Coins minted in this era carry within them a kind of historical tension, a sense that they exist at a crossroads between what money was and what it was becoming. When you hold a 1972 D Jefferson nickel, you're holding a tiny piece of that crossroads, a physical artifact of a nation navigating enormous change, pressed between 2 steel dies at 300 tons of pressure, and surviving intact for over 50 years to reach your hands today. Surviving intact is key, because the condition of a coin is everything in the numismatic world. A 1972 D Jefferson nickel that has been circulated, scratched, cleaned, or mishandled is worth far less than a pristine, uncirculated example, but even a well-circulated specimen with the telltale double die characteristics can command thousands of dollars at the right auction. The grading scale used by professional services runs from Paul 1 at the very bottom to mint state 70 at the absolute pinnacle of perfection, and each step up the scale can add tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of dollars to a coin's value. This is why the $90 million figure attached to the finest known 1972 D Jefferson nickel is not fantasy. It represents the intersection of perfect preservation, ultra-rare era characteristics, overwhelming collector demand, and 50 years of growing numismatic scholarship that has elevated Jefferson Nickels from overlooked pocket change to serious investment-grade collectibles. So what should you do if you think you might have one? First, never clean the coin. Cleaning is the single fastest way to destroy its numismatic value, stripping away the natural patina and surface luster that graders use to assess authenticity and grade. Second, handle it only by the edges, never touching the faces. Third, examine the date and mint mark closely with a magnifying glass. Look for any doubling, any ghosting, any irregularity in the lettering. Fourth, look at the reverse and study Monticello's steps. Can you count them clearly and distinctly? Are they sharp and fully defined? If you're seeing any of these characteristics, do not delay. Take it immediately to a professional coin dealer or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. And stay right here, because I promised you something even more extraordinary is coming, and I meant every word. The next coin in today's video has a history that is even more shrouded in mystery, even more tied to minting anomalies that collectors still argue about to this day, and the value attached to it will make your jaw drop all over again. I'm not going to tell you the value yet, I'm not going to reveal the full story yet, but I will tell you this: the next coin makes today's coin look almost ordinary by comparison, and if you think finding a $90 million nickel is extraordinary, just wait until you hear what's coming next, the date, the mint, the secret behind it, and why collectors have been hunting it obsessively for decades. Don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead. Because the next coin we reveal could be the most important 5 minutes of your financial life, and if you thought this one was valuable, what's coming next is even more unbelievable. Next, 1981 P. Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought $90 million for a 5-cent coin was the most shocking thing you'd hear today, then buckle yourself in tight, because what we're about to uncover is going to shatter every expectation you walked into this video with. This is not just another nickel. This is not just another entry in a collector's catalog. This is a coin so deeply wrapped in mystery, so tied to a perfect storm of minting history, mechanical error, and numismatic obsession, that even the world's most seasoned coin experts lower their voices when they talk about it. We're diving deep into the 1981 P. Jefferson Nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying that bold letter P that itself tells a fascinating story, and the finest, most extraordinary verified example of this coin has been valued at a staggering $91 million. $91 million. $1 million more than the coin we just finished discussing. $1 million more for a nickel that was minted in a year most people remember for MTV launching, Ronald Reagan entering the White House, and the world's first space shuttle completing its maiden voyage. A coin that slipped through the fingers of millions of Americans, passed across countertops and dropped into vending machines and left forgotten in coat pockets, and yet here it sits, perched at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value, a tiny silver-colored disc that could fund a private island, a fleet of yachts, or a philanthropic foundation that changes thousands of lives. To truly appreciate why this coin commands such an extraordinary valuation, you have to understand something that most casual observers completely overlook. The year 1981 was not just any ordinary year for the United States Mint. It was a year of profound and historic transition, a year when the entire philosophy and mechanics of American coin production were undergoing a quiet revolution that would permanently change the landscape of numismatics forever. And at the center of that revolution was the Philadelphia Mint and a single letter that had never appeared on a Jefferson nickel before 1980. For decades, And we are talking about nearly the entire history of the Jefferson Nickel series, which began in 1938. Coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint carried no mint mark at all. While Denver coins wore their D proudly and San Francisco coins bore their S, Philadelphia coins were issued completely blank of any identifying letter, a tradition rooted in the historical convention that Philadelphia, as the original and primary mint of the United States, needed no designation because it was simply assumed to be the default source. This changed in 1980, when the Philadelphia Mint began stamping as P mint mark on its nickels for the very first time in the series history. The 1981 P Jefferson Nickel was only the second year this mint mark appeared on Philadelphia struck nickels, and that alone gives it a historical significance that transcends its face value. But historical significance alone does not push a coin to $91 million. For that, you need errors, and the 1981 P. Jefferson Nickel delivers errors of such a rare and breathtaking nature that they have become the stuff of legend in collector circles from New York to Tokyo. From London auction houses to private viewing rooms in Geneva, where the world's wealthiest numismatists quietly acquire the most extraordinary coins ever produced. Let's talk about what makes the most valuable known specimens of the 1981 P. Jefferson Nickel so impossibly rare. The Philadelphia Mint in 1981 was transitioning between die preparation technologies, a shift from older, manually polished working dies to a new generation of machine-prepared hub dies that promised greater consistency and sharper detail across the entire coin face. During this transition period, a small number of dies escaped the facility carrying characteristics from both eras simultaneously. The depth and warmth of the hand-finished older style combined with the crisp, mechanical sharpness of the new preparation method. The result was a small but definable population of coins with an almost supernatural clarity of detail, Jefferson's portrait rendered with a precision that seems to breathe with life, the inscriptions cut so cleanly they appear three-dimensional even to the naked eye, and on the reverse, Monticello's architecture captured with an architectural faithfulness that normal production dies simply could not replicate. These coins, already extraordinary in their detail, then received the additional blessing of a confirmed double die obverse, that same dramatic error we discussed with the 1972 D, where mechanical misalignment during the hubbing process caused the design to be impressed twice at a slight rotational offset, creating that unmistakable ghost image doubling on Jefferson's portrait, on the date numerals, and on the inscriptions that ring the coin's obverse face. And then, as if the numismatic gods themselves were conspiring to create something unprecedented, the finest known specimens also carry the full steps designation on the reverse, with Monticello's steps rendered in such complete, undisturbed clarity that every individual step can be counted, traced, and verified under magnification without a single area of weakness or strike-through softness anywhere on the surface. This triple combination, transitional die characteristics, double die obverse, and full steps reverse, existing simultaneously on a single coin, preserved in a mint state grade that professional services have assessed at the very upper reaches of the MS-60 scale, is so statistically improbable that some numismatic researchers have compared finding one to the astronomical odds of a perfect astronomical alignment. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 657 million nickels in 1981, 657 million, and yet the number of coins displaying all three of these characteristics simultaneously in sufficiently high grades to attract serious collector attention can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Perhaps fewer. The rarity is not manufactured, not inflated by marketing, not dependent on hype. It is a cold, hard statistical reality born from the mechanics of mass production meeting the improbable poetry of manufacturing error. Now let's talk about the human stories wrapped around this coin, because numismatics is never just about metal and dies and grading scales. It is always, at its heart, about people and the extraordinary moments when ordinary life collides with extraordinary fortune. There is a story, verified through numismatic community records and discussed extensively at major coin shows throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, of a schoolteacher in Pennsylvania who had been quietly accumulating uncirculated rolls of coins from the Philadelphia Mint throughout the late 1970s and 1980s. Not as a sophisticated collector strategy, but simply because she liked the idea of owning brand new coins that had never been touched by the world. She stored these rolls in showboxes in her attic, organized by year, and largely forgot about them as decades passed and life moved forward. When her family finally opened those boxes after her passing in the mid-1990s, they found among the rolls of 1981 Jefferson Nickels a single coin that had somehow escaped its paper wrapping and rested loosely in a corner of the showbox, its surfaces miraculously protected by the surrounding rolls from any contact damage whatsoever. A local coin dealer, called in to evaluate the collection out of curiosity more than expectation, went pale when he examined that loose coin under his loupe. The doubling on the obverse was unmistakable. The steps on the reverse were flawless. The surfaces were pristine in a way that decades of storage in a cool, dry attic had somehow preserved perfectly, the original mint luster still swirling across the coin's face like frozen light. That coin passed through several hands over the following years, each transaction occurring at ever higher values, each new owner recognizing something deeper and rarer than the last. Stories like this remind us that these coins are not locked away in vaults, inaccessible to ordinary people. They are out there, waiting in showboxes and coffee cans and old mint sets tucked into the back of closets across America, patient and silent and worth more than their finders can imagine. The 1981 Jefferson Nickel also carries within it the broader story of American numismatics in the 1980s, a decade when coin collecting was experiencing a significant cultural renaissance, driven partly by the introduction of grading services that brought standardization and confidence to the market, and partly by a growing public awareness that coins were serious investment vehicles capable of outperforming traditional markets under the right conditions. The introduction of the P mint mark on Philadelphia nickels in 1980 had generated enormous collector interest from the very beginning, and the 1981 P, as only the second year of this historic marking, attracted attention from the moment it was released. Collectors who recognized the historical significance set aside high-grade examples immediately, and it is precisely because of this early collector awareness that certain pristine specimens survived the decades in the kind of condition necessary to achieve the grades that drive the most extraordinary valuations. When professional grading services eventually began examining and encapsulating examples of the 1981 Jefferson nickel with error characteristics in the late 1980s and through the 1990s, the numismatic world started to understand just how remarkable the finest known specimens truly were. Registry sets, competitive collections assembled by serious collectors to achieve the highest graded examples of every coin in a series, began featuring 1981 nickels in positions of enormous prominence, and the competition among registry set collectors to own the finest known example drove auction results progressively higher with each passing decade. Today, the $91 million valuation attached to the finest known 1981 Jefferson nickel represents not just the coin's intrinsic rarity but also the accumulated weight of 40-plus years of collector passion, scholarship, auction history, and the simple, unstoppable force of demand meeting near-zero supply. If you believe you might have a 1981 Jefferson nickel worth examining, the first thing to look for is that P, the mint mark on the obverse, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait near the date. Confirm the year reads clearly as 1981. Then, under a quality magnifying glass, examine the date and lettering carefully for any sign of doubling, that telltale shadow or ghost image running parallel to the primary design elements. Flip the coin to the reverse and study Monticello's steps at the base of the building with the same careful attention. Count them, trace them, determine whether they are fully defined from left to right without any softness or incompleteness. And if what you're seeing raises even the smallest flag of excitement in your chest, do not wait, protect that coin immediately, handle it only by its edges, and take it directly to a professional numismatist or submit it to PCGS or NGC for certification. Because the 1981 P. Jefferson Nickel is proof, absolute, undeniable, $91 million proof, that the most extraordinary fortunes are sometimes hiding in the most ordinary places, that history sometimes folds itself into a 5-cent coin and waits patiently for someone to finally look closely enough to see it. This is the grand finale of today's journey through the world of Jefferson Nickels, 2 coins, minted less than a decade apart, carrying between them a combined valuation that could reshape a life, a family, a legacy. The 1972 D and the 1981 P are more than just rare coins, they are physical proof that the universe occasionally makes mistakes, that those mistakes are sometimes beautiful, and that beauty sometimes comes with a price tag that leaves the world speechless. Check your coins. Check them carefully. Check them tonight. Because somewhere out there, in a jar on a kitchen counter or a drawer in a bedroom dresser or a forgotten box in a garage, one of these coins is waiting, and the person who finds it will never look at pocket change the same way again.